Namaste and welcome. So in this video I'm going to talk a bit about my yoga experience, my journey and how I've got to where I am today. I'd love to hear about yours, so in the comments let me know about your journey and your story. So I've been practicing yoga now for around 10 years, more or less. I think I first tried yoga when I was a teenager, but I don't really count that. It was with my friend's mum and she had a yoga instructor and I didn't really understand what was going on. So when I got to university in around my second year in Manchester, I was a member of a Virgin Active gym and there was a class there and it was an Ashtanga class, and I went along one day and the teacher, who was a great guy called Steve, he always asked everybody, have you ever done yoga before? Have you done Ashtanga yoga before? Because it's very different to the Hatha yoga classes. And I said no, and he said, okay, well you can come and join in and try and do the poses, but you might find it very challenging. And he was such a great teacher. He did a different version of the Ashtanga primary series, and the Ashtanga primary series is essentially set sequence of quite advanced poses, but he did his own take on it, so it was more like a vinyasa class with those elements in. No music, a long relaxation at the end, and I absolutely loved it. I went back once a week until I finished and graduated uni, and I really liked it. At this point I hadn't started my own practice. I just went to classes, I didn't know about YouTube, I was totally a newbie in everything about your own practice. So then I graduated from uni in 2015, and then I started a school teacher training program called Teach First, which is where you basically get a little bit of training and then you start on the job. And I was teaching secondary geography and I moved to London at this point, and around October I had a realization living in East London that I was really not doing so well in terms of my mental health, and I'd actually stopped practicing yoga at this point. I was still interested in the practice, the physical practice and the health benefits, but I wasn't practicing. And there's a studio, a franchise in London called Fierce Grace Yoga, and there was one in Old Street, so I cycled up there and started, and I absolutely loved it. I did a 30-day challenge. The teachers, the sequences were all incredible, so I continued to go there, and I really think that if I hadn't started at that point doing that yoga, I probably wouldn't have made it through my first year of teaching. At Christmas I probably would have quit. So at this point my yoga practice was very physical. The hot yoga studio that I was going to, Fierce Grace, was all about postures. We did some breathing at the start of class, very little meditation, but it was all about the asana at this point. And I continued to do it until I left London, and then my friend was talking about doing her yoga teacher training. And she did all the research and wanted to go to India because that's where yoga originates. And she thought, why not go to the birthplace of yoga? And I'm so glad that I made that decision to go with her. I went to Sampurna Yoga in India, in Goa, and we started in October 2017. And I learned so much about yoga then. I learned pranayama. I learned that yoga is not just a philosophy. I had my first taste of meditation, and all within a month my whole perspective on what yoga does, the point of it was flipped on its head. I went from being this very physical practitioner to enjoying the nuances of yoga and how we can bring it off our mat. So my teacher training around 3 years ago was I'm talking now in 2020, was a really big turning point for me in my practice. I came back from India in the December and had been to Sri Lanka, and I started teaching charity classes in my hometown of Stroud in the UK. And at this point my yoga practice was still physical, but I had started to incorporate lots more meditation. And the summer of 2018 I went on a Vipassana, which is actually a Buddhist form of meditation, and Vipassana just means to see things as the way they really are. And I was so interested in what meditation was, how it works, and my practice of meditation had been daily up to that point. And this Vipassana meditation is a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you essentially meditate for 10 hours a day and you do very little else. So it was kind of a baptism of fire into the meditation world. But I left that course, that retreat, feeling the most in tune with the world around me and myself as I'd ever been. I got that feeling after most of my yoga classes on a smaller scale, but this intensive 10-day, 10-hour-a-day, 100 hours of meditation, silence, self-absorption, turning my gaze inwards was really amazing. And if you are interested or have any questions about Vipassana, then do ask me. I would recommend it to everyone, but you have to be in a place ready to do it. So within that time of 2018, I had started teaching in Bristol part-time alongside supply teaching in primary schools. And it was around this time that I started teaching yoga to children as well. I was teaching in primary schools and I was doing supply work, so I was covering for other teachers. And at this point, I just saw how much fun kids yoga could be. I watched some Cosmic Kids. I had met some other yoga teachers who taught children, and I just thought, why not? So it was just at this point that I decided to do a Yin Yoga teacher training in Manchester with Angela Jervis-Reed, and she's an amazing teacher. And that transformed my practice into being more yin-based. So you'll know that Yin Yoga is one of my favorite practices. It's amazing for so many things, especially me with a hectic lifestyle of teaching yoga, running around. Yin Yoga is really powerful for finding stillness in the body and the mind. And it's often what we need. We tell ourselves that we need more and more and more exercise to keep that nervous system running and running and running. But actually, often what we need is to slow down, quieten the mind and relax. So that's something that I'm really passionate about doing now. I love restorative practices, I love Yin Yoga. I also still love Vinyasa, but I've also trained in Yoga Nidra, which was something that I found through a teacher of mine in Bristol. She used to do a mini Yoga Nidra at the end of every class. And if you've not tried Yoga Nidra, do go and try one. It's honestly an amazing feeling. You feel like you're halfway between wakeful and sleepfulness. Sleepfulness, I don't know if that's a word, but it's seriously beautiful. And so in July 2019, I stopped teaching in schools and became a full-time yoga teacher because I absolutely love the variety of it and sharing my passion. And so at this point, my own practice was a lot of different mixtures of styles of Vinyasa, of Yin, and I loved going to other teachers' classes as well as practicing by myself. I think that there's a benefit from doing both. Having your own practice, you can really listen to your body, but going to another teacher's class, you get the wisdom of all of their knowledge and their beautiful styles, and there are some really beautiful teachers in Bristol. And so then in March, I was on my way to Canada, which I'm supposed to be there now, but because of COVID, I went there in March, and then 2 weeks later, COVID happened, and I was on my way to an ashram in Canada called Yashodhara Ashram. An ashram is basically a spiritual home. It's often associated with yoga and India, but there are ashrams all over the world. And this ashram specifically is about karma yoga. So this is just the yoga of service. So I was volunteering there for 6 months. It turned out I was supposed to stay for 1 month, but I ended up staying for 6. And it was a really beautiful experience. I got really into mantras, which is singing, chanting, and journaling, reflecting, and moved more and more away from an asana practice. And it was at this time that my teacher was offering a pranayama advanced teacher training, which I took in April, and that has transformed my practice again. I now practice pranayama every single day, from 5 minutes to 30 minutes to 40 minutes, and it's something that I love teaching. It's something that I am so keen for everyone to try. The power of the breath is so amazing. This has been the most transformational change in my yoga practice so far, and I think that, coupled with being at an ashram where karma yoga was more of a focus and I had to let go of my physical practice, was a really beautiful thing. And so after I came back from the ashram this year in July, I spent a few months in the UK, and this was when I really needed my yoga practice. I was living in a temporary house with my partner and wasn't working full time, was teaching online but was finding it super challenging. So I stayed with my pranayama, stayed with my meditation, and stayed with my physical practice. And then that brings us to here now when I'm teaching at Mahakala Center in Europe, and it's now October 2020. And this place is teaching me again to slow down. It's teaching me the power of stillness and simple practices, and that you don't have to have a dynamic yoga practice to be a yogi. In fact, that's only one tiny part of the yoga journey that I've had. If I look back over the past 10 years, I've had so many off the mat experiences which have taught me so much more in my yoga journey than on my mat. So that's my yoga journey so far. I absolutely am in love with the practice on and off the mat, and I hope that through this channel I can inspire you to keep practicing. Consistency, patience, perseverance, and compassion to yourself are all key. So let me know about your practice, where you're headed, where you've been. I would love to hear in the comments, or you can always send me a message. Thank you so much for watching. Namaste, and have a great day.